Political parties are always looking for an election advantage. The feds recently made news when an email showed they approved overtime to rush through as many citizenship applications as possible before Election Day. Sharyl Attkisson highlights another effort that's proven particularly controversial, the attempt to turn out the felon vote.
11 years ago, Jamie Ferrante lost his right to vote.
So I guess I was about 30. I was convicted of my 4th DUI within a 5-year span, which is a felony. I spent a little time in jail, and they took my rights away.
In 9 states, including Virginia, where Ferrante lives, convicted felons can only get back the right to vote if they're individually approved by the governor or a court.
The 72nd governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe.
When Democrat Terry McAuliffe became Virginia's governor in 2014, he sped up the process. In a little over a year, McAuliffe restored the right to vote for 18,000 felons, more than the previous 7 governors combined. Ferrante was one of them. A former addict, he says he's been clean and law-abiding for a decade.
I went through the process. It's a website. It's a 1-page form. Fill out your name and address, the charge. And then about 8 to 10 months later, I got a letter in the mail saying, congratulations, your rights have been restored.
And what has that meant to you?
It's incredible. I now become a part of the political process.
Then in April, Governor McAuliffe took matters a step further. With the stroke of a pen, he returned voting rights to 206,000 convicted felons at once.
And so today, I will sign an order restoring the civil and voting rights of every single individual who has completed his or her sentence as of this day, April 22nd, 2016.
You only heard about it after the fact.
After the fact, right.
Republican Jim Plowman prosecutes felony crimes in Virginia and says the governor's order violated the state constitution. He and more than a third of Virginia's Commonwealth attorneys joined a lawsuit to stop it.
It was a fairly large group. 43 of us signed on to the brief, and it was nonpartisan. In fact, of the 43, only 19 are Republicans.
What were your concerns?
A database was just dumped into the voter system, and it wasn't vetted, it wasn't looked at, it wasn't scrubbed.
In neighboring Maryland, Democrats are also going for the ex-con vote. This year, the General Assembly expanded voting rights to 40,000 felons still on probation or parole. And in California, Governor Jerry Brown just signed into law a bill to return voting rights to 50,000 convicted felons while they're still doing time behind bars in county jails starting next year.
Second chances matter. These folks, George, understand they have served their time. They're done with probation or parole. They're back in society.
Well, not all of them, as it turns out. The governor's order was supposed to exclude people still in prison, mental hospitals, or on probation. So how did Michael Hargrave, convicted in a case of underage sex, end up getting his voting rights restored?
He was currently on probation at the time the governor's order was entered, so he does not qualify because part of the required criteria for the governor's order is that you've completed your supervised probation. He was still on supervised probation, and for some reason he is in the governor's database as restored.
Hargrave wasn't the only one. The governor wouldn't give state prosecutors the list of felons who were granted rights, so Plowman did his own detective work. He plugged in names from some of his own cases and was astonished by what he found.
Okay, so this guy should not be restored. There was one individual in particular that was sitting in our jail pending new felony charges, and his rights were restored. He's a convicted rapist.
Perhaps the strangest case was that of Serta McKean. His voting rights were restored in Virginia under the governor's order after he was convicted of aggravated sexual battery on an 11-year-old, even though he was never a U.S. citizen.
He was not a U.S. citizen, yet when you look into the governor's database, restoration of his rights were granted on April 22.
In July, the Virginia Supreme Court struck down the governor's order. The felons who'd been granted voting rights were back to square one. After his court defeat, Governor McAuliffe quickly moved back to individual case reviews and restored voting rights of nearly 13,000 felons.
We are going through the process just as the court asked me to do it, doing these individually.
He says Republicans should stop griping and get busy.
I would like everybody whose rights are restored to come out and vote for Hillary Clinton. And this is the point I've made to the Republicans. Instead of continuously complaining about them and dissing them, if you spend a few minutes trying to give your reason why they should vote for you, maybe you'd be in a better position today.
What makes this something other than a political dispute between someone who hopes to get a lot of Democrats registered before the election and someone who doesn't want that to happen?
To me, this is about an individual's behavior. It's not about politics. If someone has turned their life around, has overcome their felony conviction, has paid their debt to society, I welcome them back. But what we're seeing is, restore anyone, anytime, for any situation. We don't care.
As for Ferranti, come November, he'll vote for president for the first time.
I don't think that they should ever take our right to vote away, ever.
Have you decided who you're going to vote for president?
I have.
Do you want to say who?
I don't.
By the way, John Hinckley, who tried to murder a president, could soon vote for one. In August, he was released after 3 decades in a psychiatric hospital after shooting President Reagan and 3 other men in 1981. Now a resident of Virginia, he is eligible to vote November 8th.